I'm Nima Rajan. Flags on federal buildings were lowered to half-mast this morning in honor of Indigenous Veterans Day. The flags were raised at sunset yesterday for the first time since May 30th. They were lowered in honor of the memory of Indigenous children who were abused or who died at residential schools. The flags will be hoisted again at sunset, lowered on Thursday for Remembrance Day, then raised again until National Truth and Reconciliation Day next September. The border is open to non-essential travel for the first time in nearly 20 months, but many Canadians aren't lining up to cross just yet. That's because Ottawa is still insisting that Canadians get an expensive COVID-19 test in order to return home. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, some border mayors, and New York Congressman Brian Higgins all want the government to drop the requirement. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Theresa Tam says the policy is under review. Canadian officials have made the decision to withdraw family members of diplomats and non-essential staff from Ethiopia. This comes as the security situation in the country worsens. Citing hostilities in the country's northern region and a rapidly deteriorating set of circumstances, Global Affairs Canada is urging people to consider leaving the country if they can do so safely. Still, the embassy in Addis Ababa remains open, and consular officials are ready to help Canadians in need of emergency assistance. Case managers with Veterans Affairs Canada continue to be overwhelmed by the number of veterans assigned to them. Veterans Affairs case managers deal with an average of 33 clients each. This is despite promises from the Liberal government to reduce their caseloads to a maximum of 25. Now, although the House of Commons doesn't resume until November 22nd, the governing Liberals got back to work today with their first full caucus meeting. The Prime Minister and Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau, delivered a speech where he rallied against Conservative MPs who refused to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Rogers Communications says it won't appeal a British Columbia Supreme Court ruling that upheld Edward Rogers' reconstituted board of directors. The son of the company's founder used his authority as head of the family trust, which holds 97.5% of voting shares. With it, he replaced several board members with his own hand-picked directors after he was ousted as chair. His new board then re-elected him to its helm. Edward Rogers' mother and two sisters, who are also board members, opposed the moves, saying they went against the company's governance practices. Heather Stephenson says she spoke on the phone with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This was for the first time since she became Manitoba's premier last week. Ms. Stephenson highlighted the need for an increase in the Canada Health Transfer to address critical backlogs in the health system. She also told Justin Trudeau that reconciliation is a top priority for the Manitoba government, and she is pointing to the long-standing issues of housing and clean drinking water in Indigenous communities. Ontario's progressive Conservative government is promising to set up a housing affordability task force. House prices and home sales have spiked in the last year, but the province's opposition parties say the government's new pledge is meaningless. Jessica Bell, the NDP's transit critic, says the government's proposal is just meant to give the impression that it's taking action. Meanwhile, Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca says the government should already know what needs to be done to boost supply. Montrealers opted to stay the course and rewarded Valerie Plante another term as mayor. With most of the votes counted, Ms. Plante was on top with 52% of the vote, compared to almost 38% for her chief rival, Denis Coderre. Ms. Plante became the first woman elected as mayor of Canada's second-largest city when she defeated Mr. Coderre in 2017. The strike by thousands of members of the Canadian Union of Public Employees in New Brunswick has reached its 11th day. This comes after negotiations with the provincial government came to a standstill. Union members have once again taken to picket lines across the province today to press for higher wages. This comes after Premier Blaine Higgs issued a back-to-work order for striking healthcare workers over the weekend. He says this was to help deal with a strained healthcare system. Under the order, workers who don't comply risk being hit with a fine. Packages of Carlton brand sliced white, organic sliced white, and cremini sliced mushrooms, as well as PC organic brand sliced white mushrooms, are being recalled due to possible listeria contamination. The mushrooms were sold in Ontario and Quebec and possibly other regions of the country in 227-gram packages. Anyone with a package with a best before date of November 8th should throw out the mushrooms or return them to the store where they were purchased. All right, we'll be right back after the break with more news around the world, an interview from Japan, and with a charity looking to raise funds in Jerusalem coming up next. Stay with us. A Canadian nonprofit is looking to raise $600,000 in support of a pediatric ICU in a Jerusalem hospital. This comes as deadly conflict continues between Israeli and Palestinian forces in the West Bank region, a 13-year-old Palestinian boy being a recent fatality in the dispute on Friday. The Shaare Zedek Pediatric Intensive Care Unit in Jerusalem is known for supporting over 350 kids a year, regardless of their ethnicity or religious beliefs. Today is the second and last day of the Canadian Shaare Zedek Hospital Foundation's Everyday Miracles campaign. And to tell us more about this initiative, we are joined by National Executive Director Rafi Yablonsky. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Hi, Nima. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit more about this hospital, the Shaare Zedek Hospital, and how it differs from other hospitals in the region.
Shaare Zedek Hospital goes back to 1902. It's almost 120 years old, and it predates the modern state of Israel. But what's nice is that it's always had a policy of politics out the door. Regardless if you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, you can be a patient there, or you can work there also on the staff side. And it's something that's been maintained till today. And that's why a lot of people love it. The staff treat everyone as a human. They're there to save lives, deliver lives, and change lives.
All right, sir. So let's talk about this Everyday Miracles campaign. Give us a little overview about this initiative.
Sure. So the pediatric ICU in the hospital is just bursting at the seams. There's only 10 beds at the moment. And, Jerusalem's population is growing. The hospital is considered a center of excellence, which is a term given to it because it's internationally recognized. And also the whole nation uses it. So children from North, South, West Bank will visit Shaare Zedek for their treatments and for their support. So there is a great demand and a great need to grow it to the 18 beds that it needs.
So you're saying the pediatric unit is bursting at the seams. Tell us a little bit more about the current state of the pediatric unit right now, considering the conflicts in the area.
It's just being used by everyone, and that's just what it comes down to. The equipment needs upgrading. The additional rooms that they need is just a big concern for the hospital because a lot of people want to flock to it from the entire region, from north, south, west, east. They're seeing patients visiting this hospital because of its excellence, because of the medical treatment that they get there, and the cases that they see. If it's spinal injuries, if you see kids hurt in car accidents, it's an area that is just really well known for the whole country. So that's a major reason that we're on this campaign to raise the $600,000 to get the additional beds.
Now, I want to dig in a little bit deeper, sir, because these are children we're talking about. Considering the political and physical environment in Israel may be completely different from that of Canada. There's a lot of violence happening there. Can you paint us a picture of the types of medical procedures that these young children have to go through in the area?
Sure. It's no different than you see here kids in Canada. If it's car accidents, sports injuries, you name it, they're going to have cases like that. There's also sometimes there's terrorist attacks that happen. So they have specific incidences that we might not be used to in Canada, but this is the area that the hospitals has a big expertise in and dealing with the trauma and supporting not just the child, but they also know how to take care of the family and offer them the care that they need while their child is going treatment.
And where exactly will these proceeds from this initiative be put towards?
So it's going to be put towards building, the hospital will build 8 additional rooms, and we will equip each room with the bed, the medical equipment devices. So for example, for children, they have a device that's always monitoring the blood and checking on the level of medication that they have and automatically dispenses it. And everything is retrofitted for children. So of course, it's got a higher price tag, hence the $600,000 just to equip these 8 additional rooms.
And we mentioned this is the second day of fundraising for this campaign. So how much more does the foundation need to raise to meet its $600,000 goal?
So we've been very lucky. Considering it's a pandemic, the community has been outpouring us with love and donations. And at the moment, we're actually at $670,000. So we've exceeded our goal. So now we're going to be able to fit all the beds and all the equipment in each of those 8 additional rooms. and the additional funds will be used to update any other equipment in the PQ that requires updating.
Well, that's great to hear, sir. Just about 45 seconds left here, but how can our Canadian viewers learn more and help in this initiative?
If anybody wants to learn more or donate, please go online at hospitalwithaheart.ca. Under the contact us, you'll have my information. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm always love to have a conversation with anyone about how they can support this amazing hospital in Israel.
All right, sir. Thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be back after the break with a look at disinformation and democracy. We'll have an interview with Professor Kyoko Kuwahara up next. She will be joining us from Japan, so stay with us. It's an interview you don't want to miss. We'll be right back. A delegation from the European Parliament recently made its first visit to Taiwan. The visit was hailed as highly significant by Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen. She says Taiwan wants to build a democratic alliance against disinformation. And she's not alone. Professor Kyoko Kuwahara, research fellow at the Japan Institute of International Affairs, is calling for Japan and Canada to cooperate on addressing the security threat of disinformation. She says that while Japan has historically faced few disinformation threats, it cannot afford to be complacent. In a recent paper to the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, she urges international cooperation between like-minded countries. Professor Kyoko Kuwahara joins us from Japan now to discuss her paper titled Fighting Disinformation, Japan's Unique Situation and the Future of Canada-Japan Cooperation. Ma'am, welcome to Forum Daily.
Hi.
So let's start with why you decided to publish a paper on disinformation and democracy in Japan and Canada in particular.
Today, disinformation, as you know, is widely recognized as a serious threat to the very foundation of democracy. There have been a great interest and discussions among Japanese elites and experts on disinformation, having China and Russia in mind. Some Japanese experts have suggested that we should facilitate information security cooperation with like-minded countries. The Japanese governments have also recognized that it is important for G7 members, including Canada, to work together to deal with these disinformation threats. So during the discussion of the last G7 summit, the former Prime Minister Suga pointed out that information controls and the spread of disinformation are serious problems that threaten democracy, emphasizing importance of working together to deal with these problems. Also, talking about myself, since the end of 2020, I have seen some new moves underway in Western countries, especially in Europe, aiming at having Japanese experts participate in international framework and international webinars organized to tackle disinformation. So I have been publishing a few papers and presentation regarding disinformation campaign. And today I did have an opportunity to publish this paper from Canada-Japan cooperation point of view.
All right, ma'am. Well, before we move any forward, we know that the term disinformation has been floated around a lot, especially during the pandemic. So for our viewers, what is disinformation? And just as importantly, what is not disinformation?
Okay, so disinformation is false or misleading information created to obtain political or economic benefits or deceive the masses. It hinders sound democracy because it can undermine public confidence in governments and traditional media, impede citizens' ability to make decisions based on sufficient and accurate information, and even encourage radical ideas and activities. And disinformation does not include inadvertent misinformation, satire or parody, or clearly partisan news and comments.
All right, ma'am. So let's dig deeper into this. What kind of disinformation threats are both Japan and Canada facing right now?
With the, in my understanding, with the advancement of communication technology, penetration of social media and the spread of COVID-19, disinformation gathering so much attention now and is recognized as a threats, especially amid the pandemic. Disinformation about the virus and vaccines have flooded all over the world, including Japan and Canada, and disinformation threats have been acknowledged globally. The fact is penetration of social media and spread of COVID-19 behind this kind of trend. And these elements are closely related to each other, making decision-making environment and also disinformation environment more complicated and serious.
All right, Miss, we just have about 45 seconds left here, but what is the importance of international cooperation to combat the spread of disinformation?
The democracies have strong points on its own, for instance, the freedom of expression and freedom of the press, which did not allow information controls. However, this could be some sort of vulnerability of democracy. If I have to say regarding the traditional media, it needs to keep reporting constant, correct, and proper news in order to have high trust of the general public.
According to people fleeing Ethiopia, new attacks and forced conscription against ethnic Tigrayans have begun. This in the area controlled by Amhara regional authorities and Eritrean forces. The war is intensifying as rival Tigray forces approach Ethiopia's capital. They come with the intention of pressuring the prime minister to step aside. The threat led Ethiopia's government to declare a state of emergency last week. Some countries have urged citizens to leave immediately. Poland is stepping up security at its border with Belarus on the European Union's eastern border. This follows reports that a large group of migrants is headed there. Since the summer, Poland has been under increasing pressure from migrants from the Middle East and Africa who are trying to cross into the EU from Belarus. Warsaw and the EU say it's an organized action by Belarus's government aimed at destabilizing the bloc in retaliation for Western sanctions. China's leader, Xi Jinping, appears to be laying the foundation for a third term in power. This comes as top officials from the all-powerful Communist Party meet in Beijing this week. The official Xinhua news agency said President Xi issued a draft resolution on the party's major achievements and historical experience. Scholars say this will mark the party's third major statement in its 100-year history. This would shore up Mr. Xi's status as an equal to Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. China removed term limits on the presidency in 2018, and the party is expected to approve Mr. Xi as its leader for another 5-year term at its Congress next year. A failed attempt to kill Iraq's prime minister has ratcheted up tensions. This is following last month's parliamentary elections, in which the Iran-backed militias were the biggest losers. The drone strike was launched yesterday on the Baghdad residence of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazimi. He suffered only a light cut and appeared on television soon after the attack, which injured some members of his security team. Iranian authorities have reportedly banned a newspaper. It appeared to depict Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei hand-drawing the poverty line. The semi-official Mer news agency said Iran's media supervisory body shut down the daily newspaper Khaled on Monday. This was after it published a front-page article titled "Millions of Iranians Living Under Poverty Line" on Saturday. Advocacy groups say local journalists in Iran routinely face government harassment and arrest. Afghanistan is facing a hunger crisis. According to the World Food Programme, 8.7 million Afghans live in near-famine conditions. That is up by 3 million from earlier this year. Overall, almost 24 million people in Afghanistan, or 60% of the population, suffer from acute hunger. Japan has reported no daily deaths from COVID-19 for the first time in 15 months as infections decline rapidly. After record cases last summer, numbers began falling in September. Experts attribute the decline to vaccination progress, mask wearing, and other antivirus measures. Vaccinations, despite a slow start, accelerated in June. Nearly 74% of the population is fully immunized. Investigators in Houston are still trying to piece together what led up to a deadly stampede at the Astroworld Music Festival on Friday night. A criminal investigation has been launched. A crowd surge during a set by rapper Travis Scott left 8 people dead and hundreds more injured. Preliminary results of a U.S. study suggest that vaping carries a higher risk of stroke than traditional cigarettes, especially for younger users. Researchers at the Icahn School of Medicine found that e-cigarette users were younger when they had their first stroke, with a median age of 48. This is compared to a median age of 59 for those using traditional cigarettes. The results have not yet been peer-reviewed. Shares in electric car maker Tesla fell on Monday. That's after CEO Elon Musk said he would sell 10% of his holdings. This is based on the results of a Twitter poll he conducted over the weekend. Mr. Musk proposed selling the stock. This as some Democrats push for billionaires to pay taxes when the price of the stocks they hold goes up, even if they don't sell any shares. It's a concept called unrealized gains. An abducted 16-year-old North Carolina girl was rescued on an interstate highway in Kentucky after another driver noticed her silent distress signal. The secret hand signal, known as the signal for help, is being promoted on TikTok. It is done by raising your hand, palm out with thumb extended, then tucking your thumb in and lowering your fingers over it. All right, that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. I'm Nima Rajan, and this was Forum Daily.